Hello, I'm Brian Rezny, president of Rezny Wealth Management. We've got a great show for you today on the Rezny Wealth Report. And as always, make sure you send us your questions to Brian Rezny at ReznyWealth.com. Well, the majority of our TV and radio show listeners know that I've been managing money professionally for over 30 years. Our offices are located right here in Southwest Florida, our corporate headquarters, and of course we do have offices on the other side of the state in addition. My whole career has been built by helping you, the investor, get quality advice that is always proper to help you move in the right direction. The reason I do my TV shows and my radio shows on a regular basis is simple. I want to educate you. I want to make sure you can avoid a lot of the pitfalls and the mistakes often made by many investors. Whether you're a wealthy investor, a business owner, maybe you work for a corporation, maybe you're a pre-retiree or retiree. Our goal with all of our shows is simple. Learn from others' mistakes so you can avoid those costly mistakes. In our estimation, the typical investor by the time they're 65 has 2/3 less retirement nest egg because of being sold bad investments, generally speaking. So number one, real advice or are you being sold? What does that really mean? Unfortunately, many investors hire advisors with fancy titles. The advisor might be called a wealth manager, a senior vice president at the local bank. Those titles are really meaningless. What's also interesting is a lot of these firms will basically buy these plaques that go on their wall that say like they're a well-recognized by XYZ company as a financial advisor. They're buying plaques that are no more than sales material. Don't be duped. The only kind of firm, as I've always discussed for years, that you should entrust your money to is a fee-only fiduciary money management style firm like Rezny Wealth Management. Anything less than a fee-only fiduciary firm, really you're being sold. And unfortunately, that's the problem that happens to too many of you investors. Sad fact. The majority of investors get sold junk investments by what's called a so-called advisor, who are no more than really salespeople working for these big Wall Street firms, the banks, and the insurance companies. Think about it. How many times do you hear on the news on a regular basis, the big bank down the street that is nationwide was just fined another $1 billion for misdoings against you, the client? This is a regular occurrence. It's unfortunate. You might have your brother-in-law Bob at the big Wall Street firm helping you with your investments. He's a good guy, Bob. The problem is the umbrella that Bob works under. No Wall Street type firm, these big brokerage firms, or the small ones, no bank and no insurance company is a fee-only fiduciary style firm. None of these firms. A lot of them, or most of them, really just create investment products that their so-called advisors or their salespeople are required to sell. Here's a great example. Real life scenario. We had a newer client just about a month and a half ago. They were working at one of the big Wall Street brokerage type firms that you hear about on TV every day. That firm created their own structured products, their own family of mutual funds, and they were pretty poor performers in general. But guess what was in the portfolio? All of those mutual funds and those structured products, or the majority, that firm created. While there were cheaper and better performing investments out there, that big Wall Street firm, even though it was their brother-in-law Bob that was overseeing their money, he was selling his unsuspecting family members blatant garbage from the big Wall Street style firm. So again, Wall Street banks and insurance companies create these products not to help you, but really to line their pocket that much more. So make sure you truly understand, even if it's your brother-in-law Bob, he's a great guy. It's the bad umbrella of Wall Street style firms and brokerage firms, banks and insurance companies that unfortunately hinder your opportunity to maximize return because the investments they often use are mediocre at best, have high expenses that take away from your ultimate goal, which is to basically provide yourself and your family a secure retirement for the long term. Harsh words? You bet. I've managed money again for over 30 years professionally. I've seen a boatload of carnage investors are really taken advantage of on a daily basis. Retirement plans in ruins, all caused by advisors, salespeople selling investments they are required to sell. And again, I'll go back to, hey, it's your brother-in-law Bob. Bob's not the problem. It's the umbrella Bob works under. So when Bob sits down with you, again, your brother-in-law, he has a laundry list of investments that his firm either manufactures or sponsors, gets special marketing allotments for, has shelf space fees on, has to pay various 12B1 charges and so on, back to these firms. That is not good for your portfolio. Ultimately, you care about your money, and the firm you should entrust should always be a fiduciary and a fee-only firm. Anything less, you're being sold. Hey, let's talk about that free steak dinner. It's a virtual ripoff. I know a lot of you out there get these in the mail probably daily. I'm over 50 years old, and that's kind of the starting point for these postcards that come in. Bottom line, if you get a postcard to go to any free steak dinner, it's probably what we call the annuity ripoff. These are people that sell equity index annuities. Some of these guys are attorneys, and they claim, I'm an attorney, so you should trust me. You should not. If they're selling an equity index annuity or any annuity, these, again, are really sold under what's called suitability. They're for commission. They have high expenses and considerable lockups and surrender penalties to get all your money out. They're lousy performing, and they could be potentially extremely hazardous and harmful to your retirement. The problem is, you go to the free steak dinner, and what does a person tell you? They give you a sales pitch. They tell you a lot of rosy stuff. Unfortunately, at that free steak dinner, you didn't read the fine print before you signed the dotted line. 3 years into it, you realize after listening to one of my TV or radio shows, wow, Brian Rezny is spot on. We are not making the returns we were told we were going to make. There's no free money bonus, and ultimately there's expenses to this annuity, and now we can't get out without incurring a 10 or 12% surrender penalty to get all of our money out. Now what do? Your retirement's in shambles. Let me tell you a quick story. Newer client again with our firm. Came in, few $1 million portfolio. One of these annuity charlatans, unfortunately, hook, line, and sinker, got the wife to invest $2 million into these equity index annuities. They needed money for retirement. What was interesting, a couple years into this, finally this couple saw one of my TV shows and they started to learn a little bit more. The problem is they already made the mistake. They were locked into these annuities, but they came in and talked to us anyway. What did I tell them and what were their concerns? Simple. Their major concern was, Brian, we've owned these things for over 2 years. We haven't really made any money and we're actually spending our principal. So now imagine you have an investment that hasn't made any money in 2 years and you're spending your principal. It's like a snowball in 90-degree heat. It gets smaller fast, and the smaller it gets, the quicker it melts. So ultimately, while you think you're doing the right thing buying one of these equity index annuities with free money bonuses, which they don't have, by the way, that's a blatant lie, now your retirement's in shambles. We were actually to help give quality advice to this client of ours now to get them back on the right track. But it's cost them substantially in the retirement, and they know it. The retirement would have been better off if they would have saw us first, because they would have never been sold these annuities, and they would have had a much better potential for the long term. Don't make the mistake that too many people make. Learn from others' mistakes. You'll be better off financially in the long run. We've got an upcoming webinar, by the way. If you want to learn more, the disturbing facts most investors are shocked to learn. How investors get ripped off by Wall Street, banks, and these annuity charlatans. Learn how to protect your wealth from bad advice. Go to ReznyWealth.com for dates and to sign up for our webinar. Click on that webinar tab. You'll be glad you did. I'm going to take a quick break. Make sure you go to our website, ReznyWealth.com. Send us some email questions for today's show at BrianRezny@ReznyWealth.com. I'll be right back after this. Hello, I'm Brian Rezny, president of Rezny Wealth Management. I've managed money professionally for over 30 years. The biggest mistake I see investors make, being sold an annuity. Annuities are sold on blatant lies, fake free money bonuses that never materialize for you, the consumer. Before your retirement gets ripped off by an annuity salesman, get my free report, Why Annuities Are Dangerous to Your Wealth and Retirement. And we're back. I hope you're enjoying today's show. Of course, as always, visit our website, ReznyWealth.com. We have a number of free reports you can download. You can learn from others' mistakes so you don't make those costly retirement mistakes or those investment mistakes that often plague too many investors. I want to go to my first question. Mitch in Naples, Florida. Do you think the economy will continue to recover, or will we have a stock market crash? Mitch, that is a great question. I'm often asked, we obviously we're in that coronavirus scenario, and, we've had a lot of volatility in 2020. Ultimately, what you have to realize is this. Volatility is normal. The volatility that we're seeing this year, though, is not normal, but it's starting to subside. Ultimately, it depends on the U.S. economy and the direction we head. Currently, the policies of our current president are doing a great job. The economy, in our opinion, is going to have a full-blown recovery as we progress through this year. And ultimately, you need to be invested properly now for 2021. That's not that far away. I think there's opportunity the rest of this year if you're invested properly in the right sectors and the right investments. And I think 2021 is going to be exceptionally promising for investors who do not have what we call a set it and forget it portfolio sold to them by one of these Wall Street type firms or banks. So again, it's where you invest. Currently, and I've talked about this many times, stay out of Europe completely. It's garbage. Be U.S.-centric with your investments, whether it's bond-related or equity-related. I think you're going to have a much better opportunity for return and to reduce risk, not only the rest of this year, but going forward into future years. Roy in Naples, Florida. My advisor is suggesting I take my pension as a lump sum, then use it to buy an annuity from several different insurance companies to spread the risk. Do you agree with this? Absolutely not. You've got what's called an annuity charlatan that is basically going to sell you some garbage annuity. There is zero reason as an investor, as a retiree, you should ever buy an annuity. Annuities have crazy high expenses. They're going to tell you they don't, but they do. Read the fine print. There's no free money bonuses. You have risk in these products. You do not have inflation protection, especially if you take an income for life option on these things. You're going to pay higher taxes than you were led to believe. You're going to have insane surrender penalties to get your money out once you realize you've made a bad choice in general. What I will suggest you do is this. Instead of being sold a bunch of garbage annuities, why don't you call Rezny Wealth Management? Schedule a consultation. We do manage larger portfolios. Our current client minimum is $500,000 and up. But I will tell you this. We are looking at going to a $1 million minimum starting in 2021. So for you smaller investors, you still have an opportunity to hire our firm today at our current minimum of $500,000 and get proper management of your assets. Rich in Fort Myers, Florida. How does one pick an advisor? I have heard your show on and off, and I've had 4 different advisors in 20 years. None have really helped me. My current advisor wants me to move my IRA into what's called an equity index fixed annuity. Your thought? I'll tell you what, kind of like my last question, your advisor's not an advisor at all. They're using a fancy title. Anybody who sells these equity index annuities, they're selling these under what's called suitability. What that means is they don't legally work for you. They're just strictly salespeople with a fancy title. Equity fixed index annuities are the garbage of annuity type products. That I will tell you. And they also have some of the highest, longest surrender penalties once you realize you've made a mistake to get your money out. Never buy an annuity. Your advisor basically wants to line his pocket at the detriment of your investments and your future retirement security. Do not buy an annuity. If you'd like, call our firm, schedule a consultation. We'd be more than happy to help you get you on track in the right direction and make sure that you get advice from a real money management firm with over 30 years of experience. Hey, by the way, we do have an upcoming webinar. A lot of you that listen to my TV and my radio shows on Sunday want to learn. You want to learn from others' mistakes so you don't make those costly mistakes. Our upcoming webinar, The Disturbing Facts. Most investors are shocked to learn how investors get ripped off by Wall Street, banks, and these annuity charlatans. Learn how to protect your wealth from bad advice. Go to ReznyWealth.com. Dates and to sign up, click on our webinar tab. I will tell you, we hear lots of positive comments from people who have listened to our past webinars. You will learn a ton. That information in that short, easy to understand webinar, in our opinion, will help you light years of move ahead in the right direction. You won't make the bad decisions that often plague too many investors. Learn from others' mistakes. Go to ReznyWealth.com. Click on that webinar tab. Listen in the comfort of your home. This way you can profit. You can make less, hopefully, bad mistakes. Learn from others so you can profit for your future retirement. Let me talk about a couple things. I'm often asked, Brian, bad advice. Generally speaking, what are some of the bullet points? What are some of the red flags that I kind of see? Number one, somebody who wants to sell you an annuity, that is your number one warning sign. If you get anybody at a bank, an insurance company, a brokerage house that wants to sell an annuity, you should be running out the door. That is key and number one overall. The other bad product is called a non-traded REIT. This is a real estate investment trust. These are non-traded. These are also garbage. By the way, you could buy a traded REIT, real estate investment trust, that has complete liquidity. You can buy today, you can get out tomorrow. When you buy a non-traded real estate REIT, you can't get out until they decide to get you out. And that could take 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know if you're hearing anything, but a lot of various parts of real estate are not doing well because retail's changing. So imagine your so-called advisor, maybe your cousin Bob at the big brokerage house, sold you a non-traded REIT. And it's going down in value and your cash flow is drying up because they own a bunch of shopping centers. You can't get out. Never buy any investment that you can't get out immediately. Annuities and non-traded REITs or real estate investment trusts are the two worst investments on our hit list. Avoid those at all costs. If somebody tries to sell you one, you've got a salesperson, you don't have a real advisor, and unfortunately, if you buy it, you're going to learn and make your own big mistakes that are going to cost you quite a bit. They tell you that working with them won't cost you anything. This often comes from the people that sell annuities. Annuities are a high cost structure. Do not buy any annuity and don't let somebody convince you to buy an annuity. They can't answer your questions in detail about the product or the cost. So they basically pitch you a product. Big red flag. You ask a couple basic questions, but they kind of fumble around. They change the storyline. They don't answer the question. Never buy an investment that is complicated, that is not easily understood. Anything that's complicated and hard to understand with surrender penalties or lack of liquidity is a huge red flag. Investments they sell have surrender penalties are not liquid. Again, I want to reiterate this strongly. Never buy, there's no reason to buy investments that have surrender penalties or that are not liquid. You will be making, again, one of the biggest financial blunders and mistakes you can. Because once you realize that you were suckered into a bad investment by maybe your cousin Bob or your best friend from college, Bill, you can't get out. You want liquidity because if things start to change with those investments, you want to be able to exit and hopefully protect your portfolio. Big red flag. They are not a fee-only fiduciary registered investment advisor. Any firm that is not fee-only is in the sales product mode. Banks, Wall Street type firms, insurance companies, none of these are fee-only fiduciary registered investment advisors. So remember, understand the difference because it could make a big difference in your retirement. Folks, I've got to take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to answer more questions, so make sure you visit our website, ReznyWealth.com, and make sure you send us your questions to Brian Rezny at ReznyWealth.com. I'll be right back after this. Hello, I'm Brian Rezny, president of Rezny Wealth Management. Investors are getting smart. They are moving away from conflicts, bad advice, and being sold junk investments from firms that are not fee-only fiduciaries. Smart investors demand real advice and real money management 100% of the time. If you're tired of the financial runaround, download my groundbreaking report, 3 investment risks you must avoid now. And we're back, and we're taking your questions, of course. Make sure you send those to Brian Rezny at ReznyWealth.com. We want to answer as many questions as possible. And even if we can't answer them on today's show, we'll always try to answer them the following week. So definitely send us those email questions. Hey, by the way, I do have a live radio show on Sunday mornings. Go to ReznyWealth.com. Click on our TV radio show tab for availability, not only on my TV shows, but also my live radio shows in addition. We enjoy educating you, the investor. I can tell you I've built my entire career on educating you and making sure that you make better decisions around your investments and your retirement. If you're finding the advice you're currently getting from your current so-called advisor or maybe advisor is not really working, maybe you've got that set it and forget it portfolio, make sure you do call Rezny Wealth Management for a consultation. We do manage larger portfolios, $500,000 and greater. And just as a little reference, at the end of this year, 2021, we will be raising our client minimum for new clients only to $1 million. So if you've got that $500,000 and you'd like to become a client before we raise our minimum, make sure you do call our office at 800-618-8577. We'd love to help you now, so this way you can get in before maybe that door closes on smaller type accounts. Sam in Cape Coral, Florida. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin as an investment opportunity? A bubble or opportunity? Sam, I would not touch any cryptocurrency at all. Cryptocurrencies are not investments. These are pure speculation plays at this point, in my opinion. I remember when I went back to the beginning of 2019, I'm doing a Sunday radio show in January, and the number one question of the day for actually a couple weeks, and I probably had 20 in one day alone, was about Bitcoin. What do you think about Bitcoin? Should I buy Bitcoin? You know why I was getting all those calls? Because it was all over the news how Bitcoin was up, let's say 8,000% the year before. Any investment that goes up 8,000% in a year is speculation, folks. Don't get involved in speculation. Buy real investments that have value and can grow or have the opportunity to grow in value or provide income. Bitcoin is basically a cryptocurrency, a future opportunity for basically paying for things. It's not an investment at all. Stay out of it, otherwise you will probably lose your shirt. Jim in Naples, Florida. Tax reform, will that boost economic growth? Tax reform is always positive for the economy. Anytime you put money back into the consumer pocket, anytime you put money back into a corporation's pocket, they will spend money better than the government. Our government typically is very wasteful on how things are done and where money is spent. I think most people realize that. tax reform is always positive. I firmly believe with the current policies, with this administration, we have great opportunity going forward for growth not only in the U.S. economy, but ultimately we're going to see wage growth come back again, ultimately when the virus and all this is kind of done. And I think the U.S. Citizen, taxpayer will keep more of their own money, and they will basically profit from that. By the way, we do have an upcoming webinar, The Disturbing Facts Most Investors Are Shocked to Learn. How investors get ripped off by Wall Street, banks, and these annuity charlatans. If you want to learn how to protect your wealth from bad advice, if you are sick of a set it and forget it portfolio, if you're realizing your advisor, you never hear from them, they're bad communicators. They have your money invested in a lot of sponsored products through their firms or their own house brand funds. Maybe it's time you learned from others' mistakes. Our webinar will do just that. Go to ReznyWealth.com, click on our webinar tab. You can get times, availability, and the way to sign up for our webinar is through our website at ReznyWealth.com. Ted in Boca Raton, Florida. My advisor only invests in U.S.-based large cap stock. Am I losing out on other opportunities? I'll tell you what, you definitely are. Think about this. If you take a look at just the U.S. marketplace alone, we've got small cap, which are smaller companies that are up and coming, and we got mid cap companies that are up and coming. If you only look at this small group of stocks, just large cap, you're missing out on, let's say, maybe 70, 80% of the other investment opportunities around the world. That, to me, is a huge, huge mistake. So what I will tell you is this. Make sure overall that you are looking at all aspects. If your advisor only looks at one little part, you're leaving, in our opinion, a lot of opportunities on the table. At our firm, we look at all asset categories, whether small, large, we look at all sectors, we look at the world. But I will tell you this. Currently, we're invested mainly in the U.S., not only in the bond side, but the equity side. Why is that? Because in our opinion, that is the best opportunity for investors. Folks, I am just about out of time. I want to thank everybody, of course, for coming or sending your email questions today for our show. As always, if you're concerned about the way your wealth is being managed, if you want a real money management firm that looks out for you all the time, call Rezny Wealth Management. Real advice, real money management, 100% of the time. Go to ReznyWealth.com, and as always, we are here for you every day to make sure you can make better decisions around your investments and your overall retirement. If you're concerned about your money and you want to download any of our groundbreaking reports, go to ReznyWealth.com. That's ReznyWealth.com. And make sure you call our office for a consultation at 800-618-8577. We want to make sure you can make better decisions around your overall portfolio, and we'll see you next week.